Hi, I'm Resham Arden, and this is the Now I Know podcast. Through these insightful conversations, I strive to spread awareness on wellbeing topics and educate our listeners. I'm so pleased to be joined today by Madeline McQueen, who's an award-winning Forbes featured executive coach and TEDx speaker. In a career which spans 35 years, Madeline has inspired the workforces of brands ranging from Saatchi and Saatchi, Ogilvy, Google, Sky, and Nike. Today, amongst other things, we'll be talking about confidence for our well-being, and we'd love the audience to come away today feeling confident and empowered. Welcome, Madeline.
Welcome to me. Welcome to you. Thank you so much for having me. Oh dear, really appreciate being here, Resham.
Oh no, and I'm so grateful for your time because I know how busy you are and you've been moving houses, etc. So it's so lovely to finally connect, and it's great. But I've done a little introduction to yourself, and I don't think it does you justice. So could you give the audience a bit more about who Madeline McQueen is?
So I suppose I'll start with, I am the youngest of 6 girls, parents from the Caribbean, born in the year of our Lord 1969. So I've been on this planet for several decades. Now coming to my mid 50s, which I still go, sorry, what?
Wow. And look at
I've been married to my husband David McQueen for 28 years, I think it is this year, together for 35. We have 2 daughters, 21 and 25, and we are I'm an exec coach. I work with the leaders. I work a lot in advertising, tech, and finance, amongst other areas. And I also deliver soft skills training and professional speeches. And I run a club that's, exclusively for women in leadership. And award winning. I think of this year, I know of 3, 2 about to be announced. 1 I've already received, which is great. I'm on a roll this year. And I have an absolute passion for people, but certainly for women. And definitely it's about, I have an equation that all of my work is from, which is, clarity. It's getting really clear about what you want, why you want it, why it's important. Plus, confidence, that's evidence-based confidence. That's really understanding what you bring to the table, over empowerment. So with the 2 of them, you can feel super empowered to do a whole range of things. And there are tools that come with empowerment. And so clarity plus confidence over empowerment equals thrive. And I'm very much about us learning how to live a life that thrives and living on our own terms. So that's a little bit about me.
Wow, love it. Thrive's the word, actually. You are absolutely thriving this year. Loads of awards, and it's amazing. Thank you for that. So for all the listeners out there, I wanted to touch on an event. The first time I ever saw you speak, because I found the tools you gave me absolutely life-changing. So a couple of years ago, during lockdown, there was an event in the advertising industry called WACL. So those that haven't heard of it, if you go onto LinkedIn, type in WACL. It's like a women in leadership conference every year in the advertising industry. And Madeline, you were one of the speakers, and you said so many things on that stage. And I just felt like you were speaking to me when I was doing this virtually. And, you basically gave me the tools to feel confident and empowered. And it was especially at a time when I was feeling quite low in the workplace. And something you sort of taught me was, don't let anyone take your power. You shine your light. You are amazing. And I remember you said something like, put something on your mirror saying, I am magnificent. And I do that. I've got it on my mirrors, like, I am magnificent, because, what you're trying to say to us was, you have the power to be amazing, and don't let anyone take that away from you. And I just absolutely loved it. And this is when I thought about you for the podcast about wellbeing, because not only did you empower me, but I felt like my wellbeing in the workplace became more like confident. I was shining my light brighter. When I talk about dimming your light or shining the light. But could you give the audience like a bite-sized version of what you did at the WACL event, which inspired me?
I kind of went through the tools of empowerment. I think I started with, this session is about putting your crown on, and there are so many things that we that we do that literally dim our light, that stop us from feeling better, not about ourselves, about our well-being, about who we are. And we're so impacted by that, because what happens is we hand our power over to somebody else, hoping that they will show us our value, hoping that they will let us know that we have something to offer. And because we keep handing it over and then waiting for the scraps that they give us, it's impacting us on a daily basis. It erodes our confidence. It stops us asking the questions that we need to ask. It stops us seeing mistakes as they're just a mistake, like to err is human. I recently I was on a call with like 200 people delivering a workshop for an organization linked to the civil service. I was telling them something to do, and I took a sip of my tea and it just dripped down my chin, down my pink top. It was just like there was tea all over me. And I had a choice in that moment. And I think this is the thing, I think is one of the things I said is we have choice. And too often we surrender that choice to other people, which is, and this is all about taking back your power. And actually in that moment, I chose to go, this is a mistake. There's nothing I could do about it. I can either choose to now make it my focus and impact me and make me think about that all the time and not deliver very well and stumble and stutter because I'm so busy getting in the narrative of what that or what I'm making it mean about me, i.e., oh my goodness, look at I made a mistake. Everybody must be laughing at me. They must think I'm so clumsy. They must think I'm stupid. I don't look professional. I can do that. Or I can go, hey guys, I just spilled tea down myself. Oh my goodness, can't even believe it. And you see, here's the learning. When we drop tea or when we make a mistake, let's just call it out and move on, which is what I did. And it's like, and it was a great lesson actually in the moment because I was talking about the tools of empowerment. And actually, too often we allow ourselves to get taken up by the issue, the mistake, and not recognize to err is human. It's part of our human existence. It's how we've learned everything virtually, the way we learn to walk. And so I think one of the things I was said, make mistakes like a toddler, because toddlers face plant and then they get back up. We face plant and we stay there and we make this mean that our life is over and we, how terrible it is. So for me, if I think about that session, it's really about saying, hey, you can change the narrative anytime you want to because you have the power of choice. And if you choose to see yourself in a light of, I'm a work in progress, I'm a kick-ass person, I can ask questions, I can go for what I want, and I don't need to wait for everybody else, then you show up very differently. But also how you feel about yourself is different. And that's so important to your well-being.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And I think that's why, I said to people all the time that feeling down or they want to build their confidence, I said, you've got to follow magnificent Madeline because she has so many inspiring things on her social media, on LinkedIn, everywhere. And there was another, I know you and I have also talked offline as well. And there was a phrase that you said, which I love, and I've been using it, is, when you're in the workplace and, you're not feeling valued, and you said this line, which I loved, and you said that leaders can dine out on your intelligence.
Yes.
And I really love that phrase. And could you expand for the audience what you mean by dining on someone's intelligence?
So the full phrase is, it's a question. Have you ever been blocked by a manager who was because they were dining out on your genius? And I think this is very common, especially for women, where what happens is, because again, the value piece, we do the most. Like we take on everything. And I heard this phrase, somebody said, a client of mine actually, who said, and I was interviewing her for something, and she said, one of the pieces of advice she was given was, do not own the problem in the room. And we're very good as women as owning the problem in the room. We want to go, yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that. And so we overload ourselves and we do all the work. And then we're doing our boss's work, And so then we dig ourselves into a hole that nobody wants to take us out of, because we make people look good. And because we make them look good, they're not going to promote us. Why would they promote us? Because if they promote us, they no longer have us to do everything. And so in effect, they are dining out on our genius, on our intelligence, on our work ethic. And sometimes what we need to do is not do so much. Again, this goes back to validation. We're saying, we get the job and then we go, I've got to prove myself. No, you proved yourself in the interview.
Yes.
That's why they picked you. So now what you need to do is just do your job. Stop doing everybody else's job. And because when you do, you dig yourself into the hole that nobody wants to take you out of. Because if I move you, then some of the things that maybe are my job that you're doing for me, I then have to do. And maybe I'm not. We assume that just because somebody's in a position of leadership that they're confident or that they're competent. Not necessarily.
Absolutely. So, that's something I think I've learned over the years now, is like, stay in your lane. Because like you say, when you do all those things and then you feel either you're not feeling valued, or like you're like, why am I doing this? How did I get into this hole? So staying in your lane, you're right, it's so important as well. And I think like setting boundaries as well. I think I've learned a lot from some of your talks, just setting those boundaries. So absolutely love that. So obviously, after listening to you at Wackle, the Wackle event, I started to Google Madeline, and I came across, I think on your page, on your LinkedIn page, there's a TED talk you did about human behaviors and fire starters. And for the audience listening, you listen to this talking about fires around the world, and then it leads into human behaviors. And I absolutely loved it, because it's talking about the toxic behaviors in a work environment, or generally in any environment. Could you explain briefly to the audience what you meant in your TED talk?
Yeah, so I basically used the fact, I think it was 2019 I did this TED talk, and I used the fact that there had been so many fires around the world. We also often talk about the Amazon, like a lot of the Amazon is on fire, but there are actually lots of other places in the world that are on fire. And I wanted to use it as an example about human behavior and what we do, because there are, some people say there are four, but there are two main types of fire. One is canopy fire, and canopy fire is where this fire it's often accidental or maybe purposeful, and this fire is where literally everything burns. It burns the grass, it burns everything, it burns the trees, it burns everything. And then basically the fire can jump from one area to another, and because of the oxygen that it gains, and it's like, oh my goodness, this is terrible. And then there is ground fires, and often noted by Native Americans, who would start a ground fire, which would be a controlled fire that would burn the kind of like the debris on the forest floor, in order then for new plant life and for biodiversity to actually just grow and develop. Whereas the canopy fire is just destructive. And I was just relating, canopy fire is very much a lot of what we experience, definitely in toxic workplaces. The person who, and actually it doesn't just start in workplace. If we go back to school, there's that teacher who, they're not encouraging. We all know the one, right? They're not being encouraging. I remember a teacher, it was just like, oh, well, you're not going to do well. You're not going to pass. And I was like, okay, there was no kind of, this is what you need to do to grow. It was just negativity. It's the person, something new has come into the organization, and it's change, but they're like, they don't say anything in the meeting, but at the coffee machine, they're bitching, they're going on, and they just spread negativity, nothing good. And then there's the adverse, which is the ground fire, which is the person who's willing to say, hey, this isn't right, and this is what we need to do, but this is what we need to do. Sorry, I'm going to sneeze, excuse me. Excuse me. So and it's like, and there are those people, like the friend who's going to say, don't wear that, you need to, that doesn't really flatter you. And when we think about canopy fire, there's the friend who lets you wear whatever, because actually it's about them looking good, not you looking good, and you being next to them, making them look even better. And so often what happens is we do need ground fire. We need to hear the things where we need to be improved. And sometimes it hurts, right? However, you can appreciate that it's something to help you develop and grow. Like, we all know the teacher who sat us down and said, this essay isn't where it needs to be, but this is what you need to do to improve it. And that's what we need. Human behavior is such, we are the ones who stop the most fires in the world, actual physical fires, but we are also the people who start the most emotional fires, and a lot of them are canopy fires, where we are destroying other people in our carelessness. And actually, can we be more careful? Can we think more around those ground fires, which, yes, they feed back, but they seek to build up, not just destroy.
Absolutely. Love that explanation. So any of you guys want a bit more detail about it, Google the TED Talk of human behaviors with Madeline McQueen. And that's what, when I listened to it, reminded me of those leaders that we've met in the workplace, who have, given you that, your end of year review, and either made you feel so boosted and motivated to, like, this is how you can be great. Or you get those leaders who make you walk out and feel quite deflated, and you think, why am I bothered? So this is so relatable in so many ways. I just love the way you did that fire starter moment, because it's so relatable in so many different topics.
Thank you.
So I love that. So, anyone that knows you on social media knows you're so bubbly, you're an award-winning lady, you're just so inspirational. But I know you've had challenges in your, many years ago as well, to do with your personal life. Are you able to share a bit more about what you went through in the early years?
So I mean, I can, people always look, I was told this years and years ago, and I was like, the phrase is, it takes 10 years to be an overnight success. I don't think I'm an overnight success, but I know I am more successful than I was 10 years ago. And what people don't understand is the journey. And I don't think we talk enough about the journey. We see somebody and we want to go, yeah, look how great. And then it's like, actually, what have they been through? What's brought them here? And I think my experiences have definitely brought me here, and they inform my work. So, I can tell you that I'm the youngest of 6 girls. I grew up, both parents, in Leicester. And when I was 10, my dad died very, very suddenly, and that had a real impact on me and my sisters and my mum. And those things, they shape you, they shape your world, they shape how you look at things. And so I had to grow up very quickly, or felt that I needed to grow up very quickly, because of finding out that life, very young, I found out that life was fleeting. I moved to London. I didn't have a job. I got a job in my first 2 weeks. I lived with a friend. Got a job in the first 2 weeks as the ideal salesperson, because I was coming from customer service into it. And I was also moving because I'd met my then boyfriend. We'd been dating for 4 years, distance, and it was like, okay, if we're going to move this forward, we're going to have to be in the same city. And we got married, and we've been through the redundant, like, he got made redundant like 5 weeks after we got married. My job, I had to change my job maybe about a year after we got married. He got pregnant, had a baby, and even that's a story in its own right, about how long you get left, as women of color, the expectation that we can suffer more. And then we went to have another baby, and I had a miscarriage, and that was devastating, absolutely devastating. And once you have something that happens in your life, you start to do a little bit more research to seek and understand what's going on, and realize how often it happens, how many people are going through it, and how little it's spoken about. And that miscarriage, I had a great doctor who, for me, it was great. For some people who may say, oh, well, not sure, but he was just like, you're primed, go again. And I did go again, and had our youngest daughter, Lauren. But part of that journey, through that journey, was I left my job because I had a second child, and I was like, I cannot. Going back to work, the childcare was too much. In fact, the reason why I had the miscarriage in the first place was related to work-related stress. And I just said, I'm not losing another baby. So I left straight away. And kind of during that period of time, or just before, my husband had started a business, and we're like, okay, cool. And then literally, most probably about 4 months into Lauren's life, the whole market for IT consultancy fell through the floor back in 2002. And suddenly we had no income. And that was just awful. And we had a mortgage, 2 small children. And it was just like, 4 in 1. It's like, it was unbelievable struggle. And I remember being the woman, going out with like 72 pence in my pocket, taking the children to the library, or going to the second-hand shop, which my daughter called the one-hand shop, and just like where I was getting things from and doing, and just, yeah, I homeschooled for a while. I just, it was hard. We went through some maybe about 13 really hard years. And somehow we put our oldest daughter in private school because she got a really bad school, like a 14% ATC pass rate. We were like over our dead bodies, and we were running our own business and trying to build, but also we had made a commitment we would always be there for our kids. And so, we started another business again. We could just, and it's easy. People say, "Oh, just go back to work." Well, going back to work with 2 small children, people don't talk about how expensive it is, how much money that takes. And also we knew we didn't want to. I knew I didn't want to, not after some of the things I'd been through, some of the experiences I'd had working. And I was doing really well, as I was like, yeah, for me, I was like, I'm going to go for director. I'm going to, and I was a corporate account manager. I had got to sales manager, looking after a team and stuff. But yeah, it was really distressing. And when you think about some of these things, we had to sell our house and start all over again. And we were renting. And so recently, last year, the end of last year, we bought our third house of having houses. And we're back on the property market after 19 years of not being on the property market. And it's just testament to the fact that life throws you curveballs. You have to decide if you're going to get your bat out and, hit them, or if you're just going to let them knock you over. And I've always been determined to see what's possible. It makes a difference. Are there challenges? Yes. I mean, like, I'm just giving you a very brief overview. There's a lot more within that. I can talk for days about the struggles and the challenges, and having to sell our house, having to start all over again, how the debt mounted up, how, my credit rating is, I've only just got my credit rating back after, a decade and a half. Nearly 2 decades, because you ruin it when you kind of don't go back to work. And you're trying to do everything. And I suppose the real thing I want people to understand is, especially when it comes to well-being, is outlook is everything. Mindset is everything. You are always going to have challenges come your way. They change depending on what you're going through. And you can say, oh, it's all right for you. Actually, I've really been through. And, being in my mid-50s, being of this age, what I've learned is things pass. It doesn't stay like it forever. And you can change it. And it may not be overnight, but you can change it by changing your outlook on what's possible for you.
Absolutely. And it's funny you say that, because the phrase I sometimes use is the storm does pass. I know when you're in it, you just can't see it, but eventually it passes, and it's not always going to be that way. And
Sure.
And thank you so much for sharing that. That's really going to resonate with a lot more people. But I think it's such a lonely time having a miscarriage, because, like you say, people don't talk about it enough. So some people are culturally won't talk about it, or they just frown upon it. But it's interesting when you said, like, losing that baby made you really relook at your life and what you want to be there for your kids. I think a lot of people go through those, they give everything to their workplace or to something or someone, and they realize, hang on a minute, it wasn't worth sacrificing all of that for this. And it's really, you know, that moment is what really transformed your life and your vision of the future. So thank you so much for sharing that. So in terms of that low point, and now I know the journey is still rising for you. You're still, there's so much for you to do, but how did you get from that sort of challenging time into these, like, you're on stage and you're doing these most amazing talks about confidence building? Like, how did you find, like, is confidence like your niche, or your, you know, women was your niche? How did you find that?
You know what, I think the most important thing for people to remember is it's journeys, not destinations. I think sometimes we make everything about, I need to know my purpose and I've got to have a real clear and it's like, actually follow your heart, like allow yourself to flow. So for me, I was in customer service, working, start in sales, working. And when I left, I wanted to do something. So I started a little bit of sales consulting and then business consulting. And I did a coaching course because it was kind of new. And I just started working. A lot of my work has always been word of mouth, just like speaking to people I knew, or somebody would say, oh, speak to Madeline. And I struggled for so long. I had no idea, honest to goodness. Every week it was another thing that I would say I would do. But I recognized the underlying thread was confidence, but I kind of resisted it. But I would work with business owners and find myself working on their confidence, because if you don't have any confidence in yourself, how are you supposed to grow that business? It seeps into the business. And so that's where it kind of started. And I was starting to realize I'm doing more confidence work. And I decided to kind of put my stake in the ground several years ago and go, okay, this is the work that I do. Since I'm always working with business owners, I might as well work with leaders. So let me work with the leaders. Again, word of mouth. Ended up working with the leader. And as I've worked with my clients and been recommended, I've been building my equation, which I now call it an equation. I used to say, I work based on 3 words: clarity, confidence, empowerment. And in the last couple of years, I've like, actually, that equals thrive. Like when you're like there, you thrive. And so it's been a revealing, this is what it is. I'm naturally positive. When you're the youngest of 6 girls, it's you have to have a positive aspect. I'm a Cancer baby, I'm a July baby, I'm a sunshine baby. So it's very much about positivity for me. I'm very good. I've always been this way at tearing something apart to build it back up again. And so all of those things inform my work. And it's just, again, having conversations with myself, spending time. I journal. Been journaling since 1999. That was one of the things I know at Wackle I said you need to do. And it's like having honest and open conversations with myself about what floats my boat. I think that's a really important thing. And also, I used to have a speech that I did, which was called Mind the Gap. And this is about minding the gap between, how you show up in all the different places so you can ultimately be truly who you are. I truly believe in being my authentic self wherever I am. That is not easy for everybody, for sure. I'm afforded the freedom of doing that because I run my own business. But for me, the more you close those gaps between the different personas that you play in different places, the more you feel settled in who you are, the better you feel and the better well-being you're going to have, because you're going to put yourself at the top of the list, but also you haven't got the stress of pretending in different places.
Absolutely. I love how you said about your journaling, because I do that every night. I have I'm amazing, I'm abundant. But after your talk at Wackle, I now end it also with I am magnificent. So that's kudos to you, Madeline. I've added that to my gratitude journaling every night. So I loved it. But, I think, this is why I think confidence is so, so important. And it's something we can all learn and we can all grow and develop ourselves in. So I really do encourage all the listeners to follow Madeline McQueen on all socials, because, this is just a little bite size of what Madeline does. But if you just following you, Madeline, you're so empowering and, And I think one thing I love about the podcast is, Madeline, someone's going to listen to it that you're never ever going to meet, and you've made a difference. I've talked about this a lot on my podcast, that the podcast is sort of going global. It's reaching like Israel, Japan, and you think, wow, like just by sharing a talk on a podcast, where it can go and who it can help is amazing. So I really, really encourage everyone to follow you. But Madeline, thank you so much. We just got a closing question. So as the podcast is called Now I Know, I would like the audience to come away from the podcast and say, now I know about confidence for our well-being. So Madeline, with everything you've been through, what do you wish you knew about confidence in your younger years to help you overcome any challenges that you faced?
So I think there's a couple of things I'd like to very quickly say. One is, the first thing is that my confidence is in my hands. The second thing is that confidence is like a graphic equalizer. It's situational. We've made confidence as you're either confident or you're not. And I think that that's actually impacting people's confidence. When actually it depends on the situation, it depends on the action, it depends on so many different things. And so we've all worked in a team, maybe with a manager who's eroded our confidence, and then we move into another team and our confidence is boosted. And so instead of us going, well, that means I'm not a confident person, I'd really love people to know that confidence, when we're thinking about confidence in your well-being, it's not a birch for your back to beat yourself over the head with and tell yourself you're not confident, because in the right situation with the right people, your confidence will just blossom. And so that, if that's the case, that means that you have the power to do some work on you, to practice confidence, and to look at what you've already done that shows you that you're a capable, worthwhile person. It's all sitting there within you. And so the more you give that time for reflection, that's positive reflection. We're always reflecting on the negative, but if we can positively reflect on the positive and believe that what we bring to the table has value, then it's going to really affect our well-being, and how we feel about ourselves and what's possible for us.
Thank you so much, Madeline. Pure nuggets of information, pure golden nuggets for everybody to take away with. Thank you so much. So for those listening and wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way you think people can come and connect with you?
Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. That is Madeline McQueen. I am, I think, the main Madeline McQueen on LinkedIn. So /Madeline McQueen, and that's Madeline, and Mac with no A. And then on Instagram, I'm the Madeline McQueen. I came off of Twitter. It's a dangerous place. And if you want to find my site, it is literally MadelineMcQueen.com. So they're the best ways to find me. And if you want to send me an email, you can send that to hello at MadelineMcQueen.com.
Wonderful. We'll put all the links in the podcast and the YouTube description so everyone can connect with you. But Madeline, thank you so much for your time, and I hope the listeners have come away feeling more confident and more empowered. And check out Madeline's talks on TED Talks and her LinkedIn videos. They're really, really amazing. So Madeline, thank you so much for your time, and we hope someone's taken something away from today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's been an absolute blast. I appreciate you and I appreciate the podcast.
Thank you.